You have paid more for a brown egg. Almost certainly. At some point in your life, you stood in front of a shelf and your hand reached for the brown ones because they looked more natural, more wholesome, more real. And the price tag confirmed it. Brown eggs cost more. That is just how it works. Except it is not. The color of an egg has zero effect on what is inside it. Zero. And the reason you believe otherwise is not an accident. It was built, carefully, over decades, by an industry that found something almost too simple to believe, that the color of a shell could be worth money. And once they found it, they never let go. The science behind this starts in a place nobody thinks to look, the earlobe of a chicken. Not a metaphor, the actual earlobe. Chickens have small patches of bare skin just below their ear canals, and in most breeds, the color of that patch of skin predicts the color of the egg with surprising accuracy. White earlobes, white eggs, red earlobes, brown eggs. That is the shortcut. That is the version that holds up roughly 90% of the time. But the real mechanism goes deeper. Shell color is determined by pigment. Brown eggs get their color from a compound called protoporphyrin, a molecule derived from the breakdown of red blood cells that gets deposited onto the shell as it forms inside the hen. White eggs do not contain that pigment. The shell forms, hardens, and exits without it. That is the entire difference. Not nutrition, not density, not freshness. A molecule that never enters the egg itself. And here is the detail that makes this even more absurd. The shell takes roughly 20 hours to form inside the hen's body. During those 20 hours, the egg passes through a structure called the uterus, or shell gland, where calcium carbonate builds up layer by layer around the egg white and yolk. In hens with the pigment gene, protoporphyrin gets applied in the final hours of that process, almost like a coat of paint added at the end. The yolk is already formed. The white is already formed. The nutrition is already locked in. And then, right before exit, the color gets added on top. It is literally the last step. It is literally on the outside. It contributes nothing to what you consume. The shell is packaging. The pigment is decoration on the packaging. And someone figured out they could charge extra for the decoration. Now here is where the machinery enters. Because the breed that lays brown eggs, the Rhode Island Red, the Plymouth Rock, the various heritage varieties, those are heavier birds. They eat more feed. More feed means higher operating cost per egg. So for most of the 20th century, the commercial egg industry migrated almost entirely toward white leghorn hens, which are leaner, eat less, and produce white eggs at lower cost. By the middle of the 20th century, in most industrial markets, white eggs became the default, the cheap egg, the mass-produced egg. Brown eggs became rare, not because they were better, but because they were more expensive to produce. And then something happened in the consumer market that the industry watched very carefully. If you enjoy understanding how the world actually works beneath the surface, subscribe. It is the best way to support this work. Drop in the comments what city or country you're watching from. This script was researched using data from the United States Department of Agriculture Agricultural Marketing Service reports and peer-reviewed work published in the journal Poultry Science. Now back to it. People started to distrust industrial food. Slowly at first, then faster. The white egg, mass-produced, uniform, clinical, started to feel like a symbol of everything wrong with the food system. Bright, fluorescent white, perfectly identical. The egg of a factory. The brown egg was different. It looked like something a real chicken might lay, something from a farm with a wooden fence and actual dirt. It looked artisanal before artisanal was a word people used to sell things. And the data on this was not invisible. Retailers could see it. Producers could see it. When given a choice, a meaningful portion of consumers would pay more for the brown egg. Not because of taste tests, not because of any measurable nutritional data, because of how it looked, because of what the color made them feel. The industry did not correct this perception. It accelerated it. Brown egg production was scaled up deliberately in specific markets, not because the egg improved, but because the premium price point made it worth tolerating the higher feed cost. The breed that produced brown eggs was not meaningfully better than the breed that produced white eggs. The bird just had a different pigment gene. That was the only change. But in markets where consumers had developed the association, brown equals natural, brown equals quality, brown equals better, that pigment gene became a pricing mechanism. The hen did not change. The egg did not change. The number on the price tag changed. And the gap is not small. In major retail markets around the world, brown eggs regularly command a price premium of 10 to 20% over white eggs in the same size and grade category. Sometimes more. That premium exists in a market where production costs for brown eggs are higher, but not by 10 to 20%. The feed cost difference is real but marginal. The rest of the premium is perception. Pure perception. Priced and collected at scale, billions of times per year, in every country where the brown equals better association took hold. It is one of the most successful invisible markups in the history of food retail, and it runs on nothing except a molecule applied in the last 2 hours of shell formation. What is insane is how clean the science is on this. Controlled studies comparing brown and white eggs from hens raised under identical conditions, same feed, same environment, same age, same flock density, show no statistically significant difference in protein content, fat content, cholesterol levels, vitamin profile, or shell strength. The United States Department of Agriculture, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, and independent food science research all arrive at the same place. Shell color is not a nutritional variable. It is purely genetic. A hen with a protoporphyrin gene lays a brown egg. A hen without it lays a white egg. The contents are built by the same biological process, running on essentially the same inputs. The yolk color, by the way, that does vary, but it varies based on diet, not shell color. A hen fed more carotenoids produces a deeper orange yolk whether she lays white or brown shells. The shell is irrelevant to the yolk. The shell is irrelevant to almost everything except the one thing it was allowed to become, a signal. And now look at how the shelf is built around that signal. In most major supermarkets, the brown eggs sit at eye level or slightly above. The white eggs sit lower or are pushed to the budget section. The premium eggs, the ones with the word free range or pasture raised or heritage breed printed on the box, are almost always brown. This is not because free range hens only lay brown eggs. Free range hens lay whatever color their genetics produce: white, brown, blue, green. The color tells you nothing about how the bird was raised. But the industry learned and confirmed through sales data that a brown egg on a premium label converts better, so the premium products are packaged brown. The presentation reinforces the belief. The belief drives the purchase. And somewhere in a corporate office building, a spreadsheet shows exactly how much each shade of shell is worth on a specific shelf position in a specific retail format. It is not subtle. It is not accidental. It is optimized. And signals, once they exist in a market, are almost impossible to erase because they are not rational. They are emotional. And the industry understood this before most consumers had a word for it. Look at the packaging, not the eggs themselves, the cardboard. The brown egg carton, in market after market, trends toward certain visual cues, hand-drawn illustrations of hens, pastoral scenes, earthy typography, phrases like farm fresh or naturally raised or from our family to yours. The white egg carton is more likely to be plain clinical, sometimes just a brand name and a grade stamp. The design language of the packaging has been tuned, tested, and iterated to make the brown egg feel like something your grandmother might have collected from a real yard, and to make the white egg feel like something manufactured. Neither the hen nor the egg changed. The box changed, the font changed, the little drawing of a barn changed. And the price difference followed the packaging, not the product. Here's something that makes this even stranger. In the United Kingdom and across much of Northern Europe, the default expectation runs the other direction. Brown eggs are standard. White eggs are the unusual ones, sometimes harder to find, sometimes priced differently, sometimes associated with commercial or industrial production rather than the premium end. The same animal, the same egg, the same absence of any nutritional difference. And in those markets, white eggs carry the stigma that brown eggs carry in others. The perception flipped entirely, based on nothing except which color the dominant local breed happened to produce when those markets industrialized. The biology did not change by geography. The meaning of the color changed by geography, which means the meaning was never in the egg. It was installed. The word installed matters here, because the association between brown eggs and quality did not arise from consumer research showing that brown eggs tasted better. It did not arise from any discovery. In the markets where it is strongest, it arose from a combination of timing, accident, and reinforcement. Brown eggs were scarcer when the artisanal food movement accelerated. Scarce things acquire premium associations almost automatically. And once a premium association attaches to a product, producers have a strong incentive not to challenge it. You do not correct a misconception that is making you money. You manage it. You package around it. You let the consumer feel like they discovered something. Think about what that means for a moment. The consumer feels like they are making a smarter choice. They feel like they did the research. They picked the better egg. And the system does not correct them, because the system benefits from the feeling. The premium is not extracted through deception in the traditional sense. Nobody told you a lie. They just never corrected the assumption. They let the color do the talking. And the color says, this is better. Even though the color is a byproduct applied in the last 2 hours of shell formation by a gene that has nothing to do with what you're about to eat. This is what makes it different from ordinary marketing. Ordinary marketing makes claims. This did not need claims. The color made the claim silently every time you looked at the shelf. No words required, no campaign needed, just brown shell against white shell. And a brain that has been trained by decades of food culture to associate brown with natural and white with processed. Your brain did the work, the industry just arranged the shelf. Organic labeling made this more complicated and more profitable. Because organic certification has real requirements: outdoor access, organic feed, no routine antibiotic use. Those requirements cost money to meet, but the certification applies identically to white or brown shells. A white organic egg meets every standard a brown organic egg meets. Yet in many retail environments, the brown organic egg commands a higher price than the white organic egg with the identical certification. The premium stacks. Organic plus brown, even though brown adds nothing to the organic claim, produces a price point above organic alone. The industry is not lying about the certification. The certification is real, but the extra increment for color is a separate transaction entirely, and most consumers do not separate them. There is another difference between eggs in different parts of the world that almost nobody talks about, and it connects directly to the color story. In the United States, eggs are washed before they are sold. The washing removes a natural coating on the shell called the cuticle, or bloom, a thin layer the hen applies to the egg as it exits her body, which seals the pores in the shell and acts as a barrier against bacteria. Removing it makes the egg look cleaner, more appealing, more like a product. But it also means the egg now needs refrigeration to stay safe, because the natural protection is gone. In most of Europe, and much of the rest of the world, eggs are not washed. The cuticle stays on. The egg sits at room temperature on the shelf without refrigerating. Two completely different systems, built around two completely different decisions about what a consumer wants an egg to look like. Neither is biologically superior. Both are the result of regulatory and market choices about appearance. The egg, in both cases, is the same egg. What changed is the system built around making it look right to the consumer in that specific market. Appearance, again, doing all the work. There is one place where shell color is actually meaningful: hatching. For breeders working with purebred genetics, shell color is a reliable marker of breed purity. A hen that is supposed to lay brown eggs and lays a white egg has something wrong. Either the genetics slipped or something else shifted in the flock. Shell color as a quality signal is a real tool inside a breeding program. It just has nothing to do with the egg you eat. The entire valid use of shell color as an indicator exists inside a context most consumers never see, and the association it creates bleeds directly into the retail shelf, where it does not belong. Now, here is where it gets genuinely strange. There's a breed called the Araucana, and its relatives, the Amarocana, and various mixed breeds sometimes marketed as Easter eggers, that lays blue and green eggs. Not brown, blue. The pigment responsible is called oxyinin, and unlike protoporphyrin, it penetrates all the way through the shell. A brown egg is brown on the outside and white on the inside of the shell. A blue egg is blue all the way through. Different molecule, different gene. Same contents inside. The yolk looks identical. The white looks identical. The nutritional profile is identical. But blue eggs, in the markets where they appear, command an even larger premium than brown, sometimes double the price of white. The color goes deeper into the shell and deeper into the price tag. The pattern holds perfectly. More unusual color, more perceived specialness, more money. The egg did not change, the perception changed. And perception, in this industry, is the product. The final thing worth understanding is what the protoporphyrin actually is, because it is not a neutral decoration, it is a byproduct. When red blood cells break down in the hen's body, one of the molecules produced in that breakdown process is protoporphyrin IX. In hens, with the relevant gene, that molecule gets routed toward the shell gland and deposited onto the forming egg as a pigment. The brown color on the outside of a brown egg is, technically, a recycled biological byproduct. The hen is not choosing to color her eggs. Her metabolism produces a molecule, and her genetics determine whether that molecule gets deposited on the shell or discarded another way. There is no quality signal in this process. There is no intention. There is just biochemistry. But here's what nobody says out loud. The hen that laid your brown egg and the hen that laid your white egg are, at the genetic level, nearly identical in every way that matters to the egg you eat. Same species, same basic anatomy, same laying mechanism, same calcium draw, same nutritional output given equivalent feed. The meaningful differences between individual eggs, yolk color, richness, shell thickness, freshness, come from diet, age of the bird, flock density, access to light, and how recently the egg was laid. None of those variables are visible to you from the shell color. None of them. You cannot read any of them from brown versus white. The one variable you can read, shell color, is the one variable that tells you nothing useful about what is inside. That is the entire system. Visible signal. Zero information. Maximum price difference. And it has run, profitably for decades, across almost every major retail food market on the planet. Billions of purchase decisions. Trillions of eggs. One gene. No difference. And the next time you stand in front of that shelf, and you will know exactly what you are looking at. 2 eggs, One gene difference, one price difference that has nothing to do with the gene. A system that needed you not to know that. A system that, until right now, you had no reason to question. The science was never hidden. The studies were always there. The biology was always this simple. Nobody suppressed the research. Nobody needed to. Because as long as nobody explained it clearly, the color kept doing its job. Silently, every single day. In every supermarket, on every continent. The most profitable 2 hours in the entire life of an egg, the final coat of pigment applied to the outside of a shell you're about to throw in the bin, generating a price premium that has outlasted generations of consumers who never once thought to ask why. You paid more for the photograph. If this changed how you see something you thought you already understood, subscribe. Every video goes this deep. We will see you in the next one.